everyone, welcome to Heal with Sarah. This is a channel for raising consciousness, healing emotional wounds, and navigating the human experience, which I think we all can agree is not an easy one, and it's definitely not a straightforward one. So welcome to my second video on how I lifted and shifted myself out of the state of depression. So this is going to be what I'm hoping is a very helpful and insightful video. I am only sharing my personal experience with depression and all of the tools and techniques and frameworks that have, oh my gosh, helped me so immensely in moving through the very painful, dense, and dark state that depression for me really was. So I invite you all to pause this video, get yourself a water and some tea. I'm drinking peppermint today. Just get cozy. It's gonna be a good one. Before I kind of get into this video, I just want to preface this by saying that it wasn't necessarily all of these behaviors and habits and routines that itself pulled me out of depression. It was really more so using the external world to kind of propel my internal world forward. I feel like when I was experiencing depression, there was very little hope I had left, but looking back now, that little bit of hope I had left for myself and my life and what my life could be, and just imagining a life without depression, that tiny little glimmer of hope is really something that I channeled and I tapped into it, and I held that hope so tightly like I am gesturing now, because it just meant so much to me. And I was at the point where I kind of surrendered to the state of depression, in the sense that, hey, I'm living with depression, I am living with this mental illness that is really affecting me right now, and I kind of decided to coexist with it and still try to take care of myself while experiencing and living with depression. So it really is I kind of surrendered to the fact that it was just there, and the depression wouldn't leave, and the heaviness in my heart and the fear about the world and everything that did not leave while I was engaging in all these activities. It was actually more I surrendered to the fact that the depression wouldn't leave while I would be doing these activities, and I still focused on those frameworks that I talked about in my last video. I focused on applying those frameworks to this little life I was trying to kind of reclaim for myself, while the depression was still making a big old mess in my internal world. My first tip is finding sources and support that you can connect to, but also that you can find strength in. And so this works on several different levels. The first level is very obvious. Reach out to a loved one, family, friend, a parental figure, or a professional. Any person that can kind of be a rock for you and someone that you can be very honest with. I found that this really helped me because, for me, being able to speak to my mom whenever I was feeling depression really helped me, and she was never judgmental of it. She was always just very accepting of whatever I was feeling, and so to have someone that was non-judgmental and kind of let me be in my depressed state without necessarily putting pressure on me to get out of it, that was very helpful. And I also want to say that if you don't have someone in your life that could give you this kind of support, I really want to recommend an amazing website called 7 Cups. And this is not sponsored. I actually volunteer for 7 Cups. It's a platform where people are trained to be active listeners and to hold space for people that are going and moving through difficult moments in their life, whether that is depression or more of a situational event that they're having difficulty coping with. And I was one of these active listeners. I still am. I haven't been able to do this as much because of my other projects that I've been working on, but this is just such an amazing platform because you have real human beings. It's all anonymous, just coming to you and unloading everything that they've been holding on to. And as a listener, I feel so honored to be on that receiving end, and I feel so honored to be able to hold space for people. So I just want to say that, if you don't really have anyone in your direct circle that you can lean on, 7 Cups is an amazing platform, and it's totally free. So I just wanted to put that out there. The next kind of aspect of finding sources and support that you can find strength in, I have to say that while it was really nice having people I knew being there for me, I found it also very valuable to find people that I didn't know that were going through the same thing as me. And in particular, this for me was YouTubers and blogs and, Instagram accounts of people that were battling depression and experiencing a lot of anxiety. I also remember Googling a bunch of celebrities that were experiencing depression, and Selena Gomez experiences a lot of that, especially when she went through her surgery. And so for her to be a public figure and for her to be so honest about her mental health struggles provided me so much strength. That for me really took a burden off of my shoulders, because I find experiencing depression is so lonely and it's so easy to judge yourself, especially when everyone else seems like they're living their best life. So for tip number 2, it is find/create a grounding nighttime routine for yourself. And I personally found that the beginning of the day and the end of the day, mostly the end of the day, were the most sensitive for me, and that's kind of when I really felt like my depression was suffocating me more. So I found that by creating a nighttime routine for myself where I can really create a safe and loving space for myself, even when I was feeling so lonely and so sad, to kind of just create safety, in your universe, for me was so powerful. So when creating a grounding nighttime routine, I really just reached out and kind of collected things that made me feel better and things that just made me feel safe. And that was a very important theme in my depression, was just creating a space where I can just be depressed and not really judge myself. I personally love the TV show The Office and Friends, something that makes you feel safe, or like a YouTuber or music, whatever it is, right? It really is about creating a routine that is yours and whatever speaks to your heart and your inner child. And so in my nighttime routine, I made it more of an effort to kind of put on the TV show in the background and unwind. And so something major that really helped me in this grounding nighttime routine was flossing. And I know that might seem really random. For most of my teenage years, flossing was not an activity that I really took part in. I don't know if many teenagers could say that. If you do, congratulations, that's awesome. But I remember when I was depressed, in that state, I started to floss because I think my mom was just lecturing me one day on the phone about it, and I kind of gave in. I'm like, okay, fine. I already have my TV show open. You see, that's where it comes in. So we have this TV show going on in the background. Really anything that makes you feel safe and comfortable within that state of depression. And so I had my TV show out and I started to floss, and flossing is not easy for me because I have a retainer, so I need to thread through the front teeth, and that process is so annoying. But it's the annoyingness, it required patience, and I think that that's something that was so therapeutic for me in that state of depression, and that's why I'm really strongly emphasizing a grounding nighttime routine, because in depression I find your head, your mind, your emotions can be everywhere, and then there's a little part of you that's hiding in your brain. That's how it was for me. I was hiding from all the things that were constantly attacking me in my mind. Another reason I recommend specifically flossing, adding that to your routine, is because for me, flossing growing up was something that responsible grown-ups do. I feel in society there are people that don't really floss because they're putting it off, but they know they should, because yeah, you should take care of yourself. And then there are people that actually floss. And so for me, flossing was something that was representative of discipline and self-respect and respect for your hygiene and respect for your health. I kind of always associated flossing with something that's responsible, something that grown-ups do. And it makes sense because, the reason I didn't floss was because I wasn't really responsible and I wasn't really disciplined and I wasn't really grown up. So that being said, adding this flossing to my nighttime routine actually made me feel really proud of myself, because this was something that I had never really done in my life. I went periods when I would be really good with flossing, and then after a week or a month I would kind of forget about it. So incorporating flossing into my routine made me feel like there was still hope for me, and like there was still hope for my life, and that I was still capable of doing things that were good for me even if I was feeling the worst I've ever felt. It also allowed me to feel good about myself, and I really think that in depression it's so important to utilize little moments where you can take back your power, take back any sense of hope. So flossing was even very representative of hope, because I was physically taking care of my body and I was doing something that my mom had told me to do for forever. So not only did I feel good about myself because I was flossing and I was being responsible, and I think I was making my mom happy, so it gave me hope. And that's just something I really want to emphasize. And if flossing like really isn't your thing, then I'm sure that you can think of something, even if it is just creating a skincare routine for yourself, or cleaning your room a little bit, tidying up your room, anything that, you know, makes you feel a little bit productive, anything that you can give yourself a check mark. Because when you're in the state of depression, that little check mark, you know, a glimmer of hope can go a very long way. Depression also has a tendency to make you want to avoid things that you know are going to make you feel good, because depression wants you to stay depressed. So when you take back little moments of your power through little activities and you add meaning to them, wow, I even feel it now. I feel that hope, and that, hey, you know, maybe this won't last for forever. And so me integrating healthy habits was giving depression a direct challenge. And that was really key, was thinking, hold on, so I know this depression may not really be going anywhere, but maybe I can, you know, reclaim a little part of myself again, even while depression is all up in my space. Okay guys, so my next tip is going on a lot of long walks. So I found that going on long walks was really important for me, because it was kind of a time or a space where I could get away from everything and just kind of be. And I was, you know, still very sad and still very anxious when I went on walks, but I do feel like just that act of walking out of the door, it's just me and the universe. I personally love to walk around like nature, and it wasn't like I wanted to be alone in a self-sabotaging way, which is sometimes what I did when I was depressed, but it was like I wanted to be alone just because I needed some peace to just be and exist. Okay guys, so I wrote down going on walks is good because I gave myself space, permission, and opportunity to digest, reflect, and process everything in my internal world that I might otherwise be too busy or distracted by to process. And, you know, I do think that depression, like I said, is invasive into our existing life. And when I was depressed, I was still trying to live my existing life while this depression was so heavily weighing on me. And it was depression was very distracting, because all the negativity I was feeling really prevented me from being able to be present and focus with the task at hand, to focus on a conversation. So going on walks really gave me that space to just let my mind run, let my sadness run. I would totally cry on walks too. Like, it was just honestly a space for me to just feel depressed. And I think that that was quite a relief, because for most of the day I was still trying to live my life that I lived before my depression, you know, kind of came at me. My next tip that really helped me was making a playlist for the most common and frequent emotions that I would experience during my depression. So I noticed that if I didn't cry, then I would internalize it, and that wasn't really helping me either throughout my depression, because, you know, if the emotions are coming up, they really need to be felt. And I'm a strong believer in that, and I really think that that is something that is so important to healing your emotional wounds and raising your consciousness and navigating the human experience. All of those things, I think, all of those paths really require you to be open and accepting to feeling whatever it is that you are feeling. And so my tip was creating a playlist that kind of allows you to feel those emotions. Like, I really feel like there are some songs that just make my cry so much better, because they really allow me to tap into the pain that I'm feeling and just feel it. And honestly, you guys, like, some of the best, most relieving, most releasing cries that I ever had when I was in the state of depression were when I was listening to music that allowed me to really feel that and allow myself that moment of sadness. And honestly, this could be like a little bit tricky. So I do want to say, like, to be very aware of when it is you want to release and you just want to give yourself permission to feel whatever it is you're feeling, but at the same time recognize that you don't necessarily want to be feeding that emotion. So one of my good friends told me this quote when I was in a dark place, and it really helped me, which is, you know, feel the emotion, don't feed it. And that's really what I think, it's a balance. I wrote something down in regards to using music as a way to help you move through your emotions. This is referring to drawing that line of how much do I let myself feel before I'm just perpetuating an emotion without the emotion itself really arising within me. And I'm really referring to myself, like when I would want to cry so much and I would let myself cry and I would feel so much better, and then I would kind of want to go back into that sad mode because I almost didn't know what to do with myself now that I was like not totally depressed after that little moment. Okay guys, so I wrote, it can be a little bit of an ego trap to feel the pain and then stay in that comfort. And I find that my ego comes in and likes the victim mentality and tries to hijack the feeling moment, which is potentially healthy. And then there's the depression will kind of turn it into a feeding moment where I then perpetuate and succumb to my emotions and create an identity within that. You have to kind of feel out for yourself where you need to draw that line. It's this balance of having the self-respect to draw that line, but also having the self-respect not to be rude to yourself while you're trying to draw that line. After I had a really good cry, I would want to listen to more sad music. And that's where you kind of have to learn how to draw that line with yourself. With like, hey, Sarah, like, you already had a good cry, like, let's just try to listen to some mildly happy tunes, you know, nothing that's gonna make us feel bad for not feeling like that all the time, but something that has enough positive energy to, you know, help me feel like I could feel like that again. And that was something that I think really helped me. So just to wrap up this point about like making a playlist that allows you to feel whatever it is you feel. This can also be true for frustration or anger or hopelessness. And what I kind of would like to do was throw in a couple songs that also challenge that emotion. So I would throw in like a bunch of sad songs, but I would also throw in a song that is like sad with like some happy undertones. And I found that that was very important because it's very easy to get addicted to negativity. And when you're in the state of depression, negativity often hits you like a ton of bricks. So you don't really have a choice but to engage in that negativity. So there was a point in my depression where my biggest challenge was actually getting myself out of that negativity loop, out of those negative thought loops and negative emotions, and trying not to feed that emotion. So adding a couple happy-ish songs to my sad playlist, but like they were still sad songs, for me, helped me gain a lot of strength. But also, once again, it really helps promote that idea of feeling the emotion and not feeding it. And that was another thing with depression, why the playlists helped me so much, was because they were my teacher in that they taught me to accept the emotion of sadness and not take it personally when I would feel sad or when I would feel depressed, because it's so tempting to, when you're in that state of depression, to take it so personally and think that it's your fault and think that you did something wrong and think that it's you, which is why I really try to stress, you know, acknowledging your mental illness as just that, is something that is trying to get up into your sphere of your existence. And sometimes it does, and that's okay, because healing is a journey. Okay, you guys, so my last tip is I would constantly remind myself that even though I was still feeling crappy and I was still feeling depressed, that I was still making progress and that I was not at point A. The playlist really ties in here because it taught me that I can frame crying as an act of healing and releasing rather than defeat and a reminder that the depression hasn't lifted. And this is so important. It is so important for me. It really was, to remind myself that just another day is progress, and feeling another crappy feeling is another win because I had made it through another difficult moment. So I found that reminding myself that I was strong for just experiencing depression, just living with depression, was a sign, an act of strength. And that gave me so much courage. And it didn't always give me courage because I wouldn't always believe it, because sometimes my depression would really just hijack my thinking and my beliefs about myself. But there would be moments where I kind of look back and it's like, wow, like I've been experiencing depression for like this so long, like damn, you know, like this has been rough, this has been dense, this has been so not what I had hoped for myself. And you know, when you really look at the shit that you're dealing with, which is mental illness, then I think that that can be a very powerful moment, if you allow it to be, where you give yourself credit for just living through that and living with it. And it really does take a lot of strength. And that's something that I really want to stress, is that if you are going through this, if you are experiencing challenges with mental illness or depression, you are freaking amazing. And I'm so proud of you, because that shit is dark, it's ugly, and it's painful. And like, you're holding your own through it. And I just want to say that to anyone out there that might need to hear it, because depression and anxiety, like, we're freaking rock stars. And I think that that needs to be said a little bit more often. I am very proud of myself for how I dealt with things in my depression, and I'm still referring to the girl that wasn't always making the right choices. Like, I would not be making the same choices now as I would in my depression, but that doesn't mean that this version of myself now judges that version of myself. You know, it's not like that. Like, I look back on that version of myself and I'm like, you're amazing. Like, I'm still in awe of how strong and how resilient and graceful you were handling that shit. That version who was not taking care of herself was going through so much, and she was doing the best she could possibly do. And I am so happy that, like, I'm so proud of that version for just scraping by and just surviving, because that in and of itself was a major win. And that's something that I kind of wish I could feel more of, or I felt more of when I was in that place. But I also understand that depression doesn't always work like that, usually doesn't. So I understand that now. Okay guys, so that is it for the kind of habits and lifestyles that I implemented during my period of depression. None of these tips were really a magic pill. It really is the small little things that you can do, because once again, depression, you know, sometimes can be a pit that you feel like you're stuck in. So while sometimes we want a ladder and we're not like willing to accept anything but a ladder, which was absolutely the case in my case, you know, I wasn't open to anything that wouldn't heal me immediately. And I was closed to everything that could make me feel temporarily better. And so while we sometimes want a ladder for that pit of depression, I've noticed that sometimes just like creating a little pile, you know, of like dirt or whatever, just work with me here. I love my metaphors. So if you can create like a little pile that you can slowly climb out of that pit towards, and it's almost like you use the materials of the pit as the stepping stool for what will get you out of the pit. You can always remind that metaphor where, yes, you may not have a ladder to help get yourself out of the state of depression, but you can floss. You can floss. Like, create your own safe little space within whatever space you have left, because depression may be taking up so much space. I think it's important to push back a little bit, slowly and slowly. And it's also about this, I found for me, I really developed courage and I developed strength in my state of depression with every habit every positive thought that I didn't really believe but I told myself anyway because I knew eventually I would hopefully believe it. All of these tiny little things really contributed to a little man-made stairway out of the pit. And you know, it's really nice because it's like you created that stairway for yourself. And it also gives me right now, like my current version of myself, I'm confident in the sense that like I pulled myself out of that, and it was so ugly. And I thought I pulled myself out like 5 times, and then I fell back in, out, a billion times actually, for being honest here. And I'm so proud of myself for just going through that. You know, I'm not like looking back on myself and feeling ashamed for not having healed sooner, because that's not healthy. You know, I just respect that that journey and that painful experience was needed for me. And I don't necessarily know why, but you know, I really trust that like even all the pain we experience is necessary for our personal evolution and our personal healing. And yeah, so I really hope that these words can help someone out there. I just want to let you guys know you are so loved, and I don't need to see you and I don't need to know you to say that and to mean it. So please, you guys, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this video, what you thought of this series, and if you guys have been implementing any things already, if you are excited or hopeful towards trying something new in your life and on your healing journey. And yeah, and honestly, just leave like anything down below that really helped you move through depression if you are out of it, or it's something that is helping you currently move through depression if you are in that state right now. I really want this to be a community for people that are just healing. You know, we're just human beings and we're figuring it all out, and why not be super supportive towards one another while we do that. Okay, you guys, so that is it for today. Thank you all so much for spending this time with me. I hope you enjoyed your cup of tea. I hope you're enjoying your state of hydration. I'm so excited to be talking to you guys next time. Okay, bye guys.